Sonic Generations, ironically enough, brings back a lot of memories for me. I can vividly recall the game being announced and being beyond hyped to play it. Smash Bros. Brawl was the first game I ever pre-ordered, but I want to say this was my second? I can't quite remember. I got it on release for my Xbox 360 and was absolutely blown away. And with SonicXShadow Generations on the horizon, yes, I find that name funny for obvious reasons. I want to see how the original release holds up. You pick up right away in Green Hill Zone, giving the player the traditional 2D gameplay that you'll be used to from the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis days. With the then 20-year time gap, the environment is obviously far more lush and detailed. I genuinely believe that the game's art style holds up to this day, it looks great. Our chubby Hedgie gets stopped for a moment and somehow doesn't notice the gigantic eldritch horror that's just vibing in the sky for a good minute. It cuts to the gang all here to celebrate Sonic's birthday. Now, I know because it's Generations and that's an anniversary game, but it makes me question how exactly their birthdays work, since most of the Sonic characters don't really seem to age. It's weird. Anyway, everyone gets attacked by the aforementioned horror and whisked away to parts unknown, leaving Sonic stuck in this white void. We're warped once again to Green Hill, except this time in the boost style of gameplay that was in Unleashed and Colors. The void is literally just a level select. The story, or lack thereof, serves as a quick, simple way of getting into exploring levels from past games as classic and modern Sonic. You might think I have an issue about the non-existent story, but like Colors before it, even more so than Colors actually, this game plays so brilliantly that I can't really complain. This be the gameplay loop. Finish levels and free Sonic's pals from petrification. The next level is Chemical Plant Zone, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it takes until this level to introduce the red rings, 5 per level, just like in Colors, that unlock little bonuses like art, music, etc. They are in Green Hill, but they just don't appear until replaying the level for some reason, which I just find to be bizarre. Amy's the next pal freed, and one little detail I love is that the character and the two Sonics will have different reactions depending on which one saves them. Restoring Chemical Plant unlocks Omichow's skill shop, where you can exchange points earned in levels for upgrades and lives. After all these years, he's finally making himself useful. You'll love to see it. Next is Sky Sanctuary Zone, and you might be picking up that there's a theme with the level choices. Each, clump of levels is from a specific era in Sonic's history, these ones being the Classic era. After passing them, small gates will start to appear all over the hub world called challenge acts. They're little snippets of levels that make you perform specific tasks, needing to do at least 3 per section to gather keys to take on the boss, so I might as well just finish them all now. I played this game religiously as a kid, so I feel like I remember the levels pretty well, but I completely forgot challenge acts were even in the game at all. After beating one, you can ring a bell and have 20 seconds to catch a music note, which will unlock more little extras. They went as far as to include an equal amount for classic and modern Sonic, which makes for a pretty good amount of extra content. Of course, they have more fillery ones like time trials, ring collecting, beating a generic clone in a race, modified obstacle courses, that sort of thing. Granted, these aren't bad, mind you, they're just a bit plain. But they do sprinkle in some super unique missions like racing Tails in his plane or finding treasure with Knuckles a la Sonic Adventure and SA2. A few even have some unique music. Mental. Clearing these also bring more colour and level iconography into the void, so that's nice. A small thing I really appreciate is how varied and deep cut some of the extra music can be. It's not just the iconic tracks from the most popular games here. It has stuff like the Sonic Advance trilogy. I will cover the handheld games one day after the mainline console games. At some point. I don't know when, but I will. 3D Blast, Sonic R, Sonic Spinball. I mean, who gives a shit about Sonic Spinball? I love it. Uh-oh, I've angered the 7 Spinball heads. Ball heads. Generations has 2 types of major fights. There are rival battles and boss battles. Let's go over the former. First up is Metal Sonic, the classic iteration specifically from Sonic CD. You can tell by him being smaller and stubbier like classic Sonic is. The music in time with the cutscene is so cool, and the remix is such a bop. The fight in and of itself is pretty simple. You're constantly on the run, avoiding Metal Sonic's attacks and jumping on him when vulnerable. If you're crafty, you can also hit him mid-attack, and I feel kinda bad, because he really eats shit when he crashes, poor little guy. My only real gripe with the fight is that it can be hard to tell where the debris he throws at you is gonna land. Now let's discuss the latter, boss battles. And I forgot that at this point, the Sonics don't know that each other exist yet. Anyway, Classic Sonic goes up against the Death Egg robot from Sonic 2, and like seemingly everything in the classic era, it's way fatter and I think it looks so cute. The fight starts off almost identical to the original, but getting to the top of the space station mixes things up, having to trick it into punching some time bombs, so you can roll onto its head and attack. The timing and destroyable terrain can make it a bit tricky, but it's a fine enough fight overall. Winning these fights rewards you with a Chaos Emerald, and after Classic Tails and Sonic meet up with their future selves, they work out exactly what's going on, opening up more levels. We're moving on to the Dreamcast era, and repping Sonic Adventure is Speed Highway. The contrast of classic weaving in and out of skyscrapers and car parks, and modern mostly sticking to said highway is pretty neat, although neither have that city section from the end of the original level sadly, and that's like my favourite bit. I forgot this is the first time you can use the Lightspeed Dash on modern Sonic as well. I guess it makes sense since Adventure was the debut for that ability, but it just made me forget this was in the game to begin with. Oh, also, Sonic's reaction to Cream when she's freed really makes me laugh. I don't really know why, I think it's just the wordless thumbs up. City Escape. I've got to be honest, I've never really been a fan of the classic remix of the song. It's alright, but it just pales in comparison to the original and modern versions in my view. It's Hey Classic Sonic can ride a skateboard from an item box. It's a gimmick for this level, but you can unlock an upgrade after clearing that makes it available for any level, and I love that the gun truck chases you in both versions. It's like it's going through time and space itself just to make you a blue splatter on the pavement, and the idea of that is hilarious to me, that it's just sentient and has major beef with Sonic. I can remember back in the day before the game was released that they put out a demo. There was one with Classic and then one with Modern Green Hill available right after a trailer prominently featuring City Escape came out, and I played the Modern demo to death just thinking, oh, this is, Green Hill's so good, just imagine how fun City Escape's gonna be, it looks so cool, and yeah, it's probably my favourite level in the game. Either that or the next one, to be honest. Of course, Tits McGee of SA2 fame is Who's Freed. She calls Sonic Big Blue, and that just makes me viscerally uncomfortable. I don't like that. File for harassment, Sonic. Can't be doing that. The final level of the Dreamcast era is Seaside Hill. I suppose by technicality, since, there was only the adventure games on Dreamcast. And Sonic Heroes was on PS2, GameCube, and Xbox, so close enough to the release of them, it was all in the same generation, I guess. Oh yeah, pull out all the stops to represent this gem. Yeah, we're gonna bring back a Sonic Shuffle level. Get out of here. The classic version goes all in on the higher route being faster, with the low one being puzzle heavy, water focused and slower. It's fine, but the modern iteration is where it's at. It merges Seaside Hill and Ocean Palace together. It even has a gap in the song where it transitions between the two themes. I adore it. And it has a frankly stupid amount of alternative paths you can take. It is so well designed. This level also introduces wall climbing, except now you can only do it on surfaces that are marked black. It's a bit boring. I guess that they're made of Velcro is why. I just wish you could wall jump on any close surfaces, but no, it's specific ones here. You get a little cutscene after of the group discussing their situation, and it just kind of makes me wish we had more character interactions, and more classic characters. Where's Classic Knuckles or Amy? You'll get your turn in a few years, fellas. And the cutscene of Espio being free bugged out for me, and the audio didn't work, and that kind of tickled me. Oh my word. I cannot describe how happy that the full original version of his world is in here. Vocals and all. Let's fucking go! only assume there's difficulty licensing this song, since in every other game it seems to be instrumental only, where it reappears. Ahem, Frontiers. Modern Sonic and City Escape, with his world blasting in the background, bellissimo. The challenge act with Modern Sonic and Rouge always makes me laugh. She has to blow kisses to the robots to make them horny so Sonic can destroy them. I think that's all I need to say, really. Now we get to my favourite fight in the game, the battle against Shadow. I cannot tell you how many times I replayed this boss as a kid. After a fucking sick recreation of the Sonic Adventure 2 battle intro, it's a race around the Space Colony Ark to collect these pink orbs. Collect enough and you can bump into meteorites to slow Shadow down so you can catch up and knock him out. Although he can do the same to you, with you needing to avoid Chaos Spears with All Hail Shadow blasting. But we get to beat his ass to live and learn, baby! It makes me wonder if they'll do anything with this in SonicXShadow Generations. Is this the Shadow pulled directly from Adventure 2 that hasn't had the character growth as Modern Self has? Or did he just fancy a scrap that day? Will he meet up and potentially fight with his past self? Who knows? What I do know though is that the next boss against Perfect Chaos kicks ass. I love the detail that Sonic has grown so much since Adventure 1 that he doesn't need Super Sonic to take him down now. It's more platforming heavy than the original, run into him until he elevates the platform, then strike the core on his head. Who could have guessed? After beating him, the Eldritch Horror doesn't seem to like the Chaos Emerald, so we have to track down the rest, opening up the Modern Era levels. And to bring in this new era is Crisis City from Sonic 06, which honestly is pretty goddamn ballsy considering that game's reputation, since, especially at the time, they were understandably very shy to reference anything from that game, whereas nowadays they're a bit more comfortable too, so having a whole ass level from this game represented here was pretty mind-blowing. I love the moment in classic Crisis City when the fire tornado pulls the building with the goalpost on it away from you. Cheeky bit of trolling. Oh, and the theme is insanely good, head and shoulders over the modern one. Finishing these three's Blaze. I guess since there's not an A from Rush for her to be linked to, so this was the next best fit. Next up is Rooftop Run. The classic one has you mostly running indoors in this, I think it's a winery, before scaling up the clock tower and breaking it, with these sections being where the nighttime levels took place in Unleashed. And from what I can remember, the modern version is pretty one-to-one with the original daytime stage, and beating them revives Vector. Planet Wisp is the final level, and honestly it's my least favourite for both classic and modern Sonic. It's a good level, don't get me wrong, but there's just a few too many sections that slow the gameplay to a crawl unnecessarily for me, particularly with the modern level, mainly due to the Wisp represented being the Rocket Wisp, and those little cart bits, I'm not a fan of those. I much prefer the classic act. They chose to bring back the Spike Wisp here, which makes way more sense for classic Sonic's gameplay, and helps the level design to feel tighter and allows for more varied routes overall. Clearing these frees the final member of Team Chaotix, Charmy B, and yeah, same Sonic. Same. And with that, I've gotten all of the challenges done. It feels really good to have everything cleared. Not that I was getting sick of them or disliking them or anything. To be clear, I'm just happy that I've got them all done and got all the bonuses that come with them. The rival battle for the modern era is Silver, complete with a sick remix of the Sonic 06 rival theme and Dreams of an Absolution in the hub world. And before Project 06 was a twinkle in anyone's eye, I feel like this game was really showing the potential of Silver and his abilities. Hell, Chaos X took the Psychic Knife attack introduced in this game and added it to Silver's moves in Project 06. The name of the game here is homing attacking off of debris that Silver holds up to hit him. Probably the biggest glow up in terms of bosses, I have to say. He is really fun, probably my second favourite boss. And the next big boss battle is up against the Egg Dragoon from Sonic Unleashed. A really fun pick since you fought this as the Werehog originally. This time around you're testing on high-speed platforming to get close enough to hit either the stomach or the head of the mech. It has a good mix of 2D and 3D gameplay, since at some point you'll be forced to wall jump before you're squished, ending with the pair of you tumbling down a large chasm. I will say the 3D bits specifically can feel a bit janky due to the, I suppose, rectangular terrain, for lack of a better term. It can be tricky fighting this for the first time, but it can be taken out really quickly if you know what you're doing. With all of the 7 Chaos Emeralds now collected, the large purple fog in the hub water will vanish, allowing you to take on the final boss. Putting all the Chaos Emeralds into these big gears grants access to the final boss. As it turns out, the Time Eater was being controlled by Eggman. What? And his past self. What? No, the classic Eggman's actually kind of cool. After the events of Colors, he found the Time Eater out in space and had the bright idea to tear through time to try and fix his past mistakes. The two Sonics get easily clapped, but after a power of friendship speech from all of the buddies that were saved, I'm being completely literal about that by the way, they don't like jump into fight or anything or like defend the Sonics, they just stand far away and say some encouraging phrases. That's enough for the pair to turn into their super forms for the final boss apparently. Sadly, this is the worst part of the whole game. I like the idea of pieces of levels from the past being strung around as debris in this weird time void, but I found it so hard to tell where anything was coming from, both rings and projectiles. After boosting into the core a few times, pushed L1 and R1, or LB and RB for the two to attack together, ending the fight. Everyone is placed to the party from the start of the game, and classic Sonic and Tails say their goodbyes and go back to their own time. Roll credits. The credits are admittedly pretty cool, with little remixes and pieces of footage of every stage included from their respective games. And after we get a fun little scene of the Eggmans trapped in the void bickering, we do have a couple of extras to go over post-credits though, so let's check them out. First off, I'm gonna go for 100% for two reasons. One, it's actually quite easy to do all things considered, and two, just because the game is really fun and I want to play it more. I went back and no damaged the Time Eater right away, and then right after I managed to get 2 achievements in one, with not losing any rings and beating classic Green Hill Zone in under a minute. This brings me to something I've been wanting to touch on, how good classic Sonic feels to control and play. Granted, it's quite different in terms of how the physics and momentum works compared to the Mega Drive games, but that's not a condemnation on Generations in the slightest. It's all fitting with the level design in-game. To be honest, I was kind of alluding to classic Sonic in this game in particular when I spoke about controls in my Sonic 4 video. You might want to watch that if you haven't. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Please. But my point is, you don't have to be one-to-one with the originals to make this style of gameplay successful. It just needs to flow well with the engine and level design of the game, and most importantly, just be fun. I say that like I know what it takes to design a game, but you know what I'm talking about. The next goal is to get all the red rings, and I love that they're usually placed all over different routes rather than only on the higher or faster ones. It means you have to explore all of the level or even play more than once to get everything. I'm gonna go for any S ranks I missed first time around too, and I found the achievement you get from dodging all the debris in Crisis City quite tricky. For me, taking the lower path made it way easier, whereas you'd think it would be the other way around, and after clearing Planet Wisp, I got every single red ring in the game, complete with all upgrades and extra collectibles. So, onto the DLC. Sega were pretty big on providing extra content around this time, and that hasn't changed in the slightest. Just sometimes the extra content is fucking stupid and microtransactions. Sega's not the only one guilty of that. It's a big game industry problem, like, substantial DLC is good, but like, I'm gonna go on an unrelated tangent, so I'm gonna move on. But the reason I'm specifying their fondness for DLC around this time specifically is because both Sonic 06 and Sonic Unleashed both got level packs. Now, a game all about visiting iconic levels from Sonic's past, this is the perfect game to add extra content to. You could do like, I don't know, level packs featuring popular levels centered around a certain theme, sell them for, I don't know, like a tenner or whatever, and with the overwhelmingly popular reception and strong sales of Generations, you would be rolling in it. So what did Sega do to take advantage of this slam dunk of an opportunity to grab some extra cash? Fuck all. You get Casino Night Zone as a pinball table, not as a level with pinball sections like in the original or even the 3DS port, that I actually reckon is pretty good and gets a lot of undeserved shit online. Just a singular pinball table. Other than that, nothing. Which is absolutely fucked with my mind for years. Like, that they didn't do any DLC for this game. It's like perfect for it. So that's where the fans came in. There is a fuck ton of mods that have kept the game alive for years and years. There's so many good projects that have had years of hard work put into them that it feels a little bit insulting to have all their hard work watered down to offhanded comment in a video about base game Generations from some like nothing channel. So I'm gonna do a video specifically dedicated to Generations mods. Don't expect this anytime soon. I have no clue when I'll actually make it, but it'll be at a later time. This was given to you earlier in the game, but I've been saving these for last. Once you beat the Time Eater, you get Supersonic in both forms as a reward to play as in the actual levels. They play as you'd expect from previous titles, but with modern Supersonic, they've changed his boost into essentially being flight. It is absolutely broken, but so much fun. You can't take them into boss fights, but only they have hard modes to make up for it. They aren't that much harder than the original fights, mainly just taking a bit longer to cycle through their attacks or to be able to be counter-hit, as well as taking a couple more strikes to defeat. So while we're here, I'm going to talk a bit about my hopes for SonicXShadow Generations. Obviously it would be nice if Shadow was playable in the original levels, but I have a feeling that might be unlikely if Shadow ends up playing too differently from modern Sonic. This also feels unlikely, but some extra levels being added to the base game wouldn't go amiss either. One thing I'd really want to see are the levels from the 3DS port being brought into the console game. I imagine they keep the classic Sonic level designs mostly the same, just scaled up a bit, but they would need to put in quite a bit of work to bring the modern versions up to the base game standard in terms of design and quality. I would love extra music. It seems right that they would add some more from Shadow's levels in games, Radical Highway, White Jungle, All Hail Shadow obviously, Westopolis. Gun Fortress would be amazing. That's like the best track in Shadow the Hedgehog, don't at me. Flame Core and Aquatic Base as well from 06, those are prominent levels for him, as well as tracks from games after the original Generations came out, such as Forces, Frontiers and Mania. That would all be great to see. Also, Catch Me If You Can from Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, thank you. In terms of how Shadow's story will play out, it would be really cool to see it have some Frontiers/Adventure-esque level geometry, since Adventure-era Sonic was actually planned to be in the original release, complete with Ryan Drummond reprising his role, but Sega scrapped it since they wanted him to leave his acting union just for that, which is... what a completely fucking unreasonable demand. Oh, and speaking of voice actors, apparently Jaleel White was meant to voice classic Sonic, but this idea was pretty quickly abandoned, but the idea of him saying, like, Sonic says shit in an official game would make me smile. But anyway, one piece of alleged cut content has me really curious. So apparently the Time Eater was meant to be some form of Mephiles originally, and he would have over the course of the game regained his original form that we see in Sonic 06. Now, we know that Black Doom and the Bio-Lizard will reappear in Shadow's story in the remaster, but it would be nice to see Mephiles return here, whether he's just a boss fight or plays a prominent role in the story, since he and Black Doom represent massive antagonistic figures in Shadow's past. Sonic Generations, despite being on the shorter side and having literally no story to speak of, is simply so good that it's a non-factor to me. This is genuinely one of the best Sonic games ever made in my opinion. I'm not sure where exactly I'd place it in my mind, but it's top 5 for sure. It's just one of those games where I feel nothing but pure joy whenever I play it. If you're interested in this and want to look at the original, especially since it'll be hard to say if those years worth of mods I mentioned earlier would work in the remaster, I would absolutely recommend getting it as soon as you can if that's of any interest to you in case the game gets delisted. Just thinking back on the game makes me want to start playing again, and that can only be the sign of a fantastic game. But what do you think about Sonic Generations, and what are your hopes and thoughts on the upcoming Sonic X Shadow Generations? Please let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, liking it would be great. If you didn't like it, disliking it's cool, and if you want to see any more from me, please subscribe. But yeah, thanks for watching, and let's hope that Sonic X Shadow Generations makes an already outstanding title even better.